Welcome, everyone. My name is John Bruno. I'm one of the founders of the Way of Compassion Foundation, and it's with incredible joy that I get to introduce our very precious guest tonight. And before I do, just wanted to thank you all for attending the film festival. I hope that you are enjoying all of these very poignant and meaningful films. We're so excited to have such a collection of films that are really celebrating compassion in action. Uh, Tonight, we have the filmmakers of one of the selections, the feature film, Father Unknown. So we have David Quint and Urban Quint. And we have the honor, once again, of having our own award-winning filmmaker and actress, Barka Madan, who is now known as Gyalten Samten, Venerable Samten, who is now a Buddhist nun. And she brings a rich experience. And so it'll be great to have this dialogue. We do hope that everyone can participate. There is a comment section in the stream down there. If questions, comments, you can paste those in. And then Dan Paquette, who's over here in the corner, he is our technical liaison. So he will be communicating your questions and getting them in. So just want to thank you, Dan, for all the help and being that liaison between the filmmakers and our audience. So without any further ado, we will disappear and invite the conversation.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you. And it's with great pleasure and delight that I welcome David and his father, Urban Quint, to this beautiful platform where we can share experiences and have a conversation. First of all, congratulations. This is one of the most delightful films I've seen in a while. Really, thank you so much for putting it together and sharing your story with everybody. When I have to be really honest here, when I first started viewing it, I saw this sketchy movement of the camera. And for a moment I thought, is it going to be one of the student films? Okay, I will bear through this, this shaky camera and everything. But just few minutes into it, and I was like, whoa, what's going on here? This is just so real and so touching. So please tell me, and please share with our audience also that when your father approached you, or how did it happen? Did he approach you that he wanted to visit, or was it your idea to ask him to take this trip?
It was really my idea. And it was born not necessarily from a place of feeling content. It was born from discontent and from just a lack of peace between us, and I think about the broader story. And so I sent an email to this orphanage, which I was lucky enough to find an email address online for this 700-year-old castle orphanage in Switzerland. And of course, it was all in German, which I'm not a German language reader or speaker. So I really took a big chance and sent an email. And when the orphanage responded and said that they were still there, and that another man who had been a boy with my father in the orphanage way, way back in the late 1940s, when they said that man was alive and willing to talk, I said, I really want to go do this.
Wow, wonderful. That really must have been quite something. How willing were you, Urban, to join or to go along with this idea?
Oh, there was no problem. I just thought this would be beautiful. And for the fact that David made pretty much made all the arrangements. And he obviously wanted to see where I grew up in this orphanage. And as he said, I'm not sure what word you chose, son, but we were not we did not get along very well. So for him to find out, well, what did my dad experience? What was his orphanage like? For him to want to find that out just was great, because I didn't know how to explain anything to him. I just knew that I grew up there, and what happened, and that's it. And so, did it have an effect on his childhood? I'm sure it did. So, when he says discontent, those were very good words.
You know, I work with street children here in Delhi, and some of them have no parents, some of them have, single parents, or they've run away from home. And after viewing this film, it just gave me a whole new perspective. When they are sometimes interacting with their parents or a parent or volunteers, they do seem to be present, but sometimes they are not. And what could be the reason behind it?
Yeah.
This has opened a whole new door and layer of perspective for me. And I'm sure it has done for many other people who are watching it. So once again, I would say really, huge amount of gratitude for putting the story out there, for being open and, not allowing your vulnerability to be in wraps anymore. I think it takes a lot of courage. It really takes immense amount of courage and compassion to be saying, here, this is what I felt and this is what I want to share. Did you plan to record this throughout, or was it a spontaneous thing when you arrived at the place, or you thought this would be a good...
That's such a good question. There's maybe answers on two different levels, or more levels than that. As we were driving to the airport to get on that airplane, there was something deep inside of me that said, you have to record, this is very important. And of course, I didn't know what was about to happen. This is important. And it's just going to be you and your dad, and you need to record as much of this as you can. Another part of me, the filmmaker part of me, I think, was saying something like this: you're about to be alone with your dad, and you guys don't know how to talk to each other, and you're gonna get on an airplane and go to the orphanage where he grew up. You can't just talk to each other. If you have this camera, this was the type of camera. If you have this thing,
would it be invasive in a way?
I don't think it was to be invasive. It kind of gave me permission to relate to him, because I could say I'm doing it for the camera, when in reality, I really was doing it for me. So,
how comfortable were you, Urban, that when he said he's going to record this?
I didn't pay any attention to the cameras. I was just, for me to go back to this, I was actually in 3 different orphanages. So this last one, for the most part, was very nice. For me to go back, that's home for me. Coming to America, that wasn't home for me, because skyscrapers, the temperature, it's hot in Philadelphia, just totally different surroundings, and it took quite a while to get used. So to answer you, I saw the camera, but I don't know, I just basically blocked it out. I've taken family pictures, no big deal. I mean, but even
the thought did occur to me: is the father aware he's been recorded, or it's just happening spontaneously, or he's just oblivious of the fact that there is, because there is this sheer rawness of emotions all the time that's unfolding, even for us. Like you said, you didn't know what's going to happen, And I, as a viewer, I'm just flowing with this whole story and unpacking of emotions and events. And wow, I don't know how you have braved it. I use the word braving it because when I was viewing it as an outsider, I said, this is not easy.
I think, I can't speak for you, Dad. I don't I don't know, but he really never seemed, I don't think he's a very self-conscious sort of person. Of course, self-conscious can mean a number of things, but I don't think he's spent a lot of time worrying about how he comes off to people. So he seemed very,
Yeah.
did I do a good job? Yeah. So he seemed,
He's got me figured
it,
No, of course, yes, you
what
can
you
be
see is
faking it.
what you
Yes.
get. Yeah. I don't think he spent any time thinking about the fact that this was being recorded. He just was in the moment, in that experience. And that's one of the reasons I think it's so amazing, because we really, I mean, I got to see this part of my dad that I had never seen, and it's very real and honest.
How did your aunt took it when you said, there's going to be a camera when you are approaching to meet your half brother of your father? So
How did which person, say that again?
your aunt, your father's cousin?
Oh, yeah, she would,
The
I think she would be my second cousin. Doesn't matter. Esther, the
Oh
woman
yeah,
in the film.
yes, Esther, yes.
Well, we told everyone in advance that David is recording, and I think she said okay. She said fine, and she's very unself-conscious too. It was done, I think the way it was done was in a very very simple, matter-of-fact sort of way. There was no film crew, it was just
Yeah.
me. And even the person we end up meeting in the end of the movie, we wanted to tell him what we were hoping to do.
Yes.
And he said no problem. So that's where I was really worried, because if he had said I don't want this to be recorded, then
Yes.
we would have had an amazing experience, but there wouldn't be a film.
I'm so glad he agreed to it, because by the time you reached to meet Esther, I was like, I really hope something really amazing comes out of this meeting.
Yeah.
I hope he gets his closure, his answers. And that meeting with your uncle was just so amazing. It was beautiful. Yeah, it was really like putting it together.
Yeah.
Does the thought ever occur to you to make this into like a fiction, sort of like translating it into a full-blown film? Otherwise, has a thought crossed your mind for putting it out there?
We've talked about it quite a bit. I have a producing partner, KT Eaton, who worked on the Father Unknown extensively with me, and we've talked about that quite a bit. I think it's possible. I think it's a little tricky. You're really trying to catch a very special sort of lightning in a bottle, and it would take.
Yes.
I think there's something about watching this film that, as you said, in pretty short order, what you're watching is real. You can feel that it's real.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
And that's obviously for a narrative film, even based on a true story. There's a part of us that knows that we're watching something that's not exactly real. So tricky to do.
Yes, I understand that part. When you were watching the footage and sitting with the editor and putting it together, I mean, this would have been a challenge, like what to keep, what not to keep, or have you put together almost everything that you recorded?
Oh, so much more was recorded than ended up in the finished film. And that's where my producing partner, KT, was so valuable. When you make a film that's so personal, it's very easy to lose perspective, I think. And it's easy to think that you should keep a lot of things in that maybe necessarily don't really move the story forward. And so we really worked hard to
I guess there's a very fine line in, treading that as a son going through this whole journey and as a filmmaker watching it.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And we've screened the film a lot. We've screened it with groups of people a lot, large audiences, small audiences. And we did a lot of listening to people's feedback about what they didn't understand or what maybe didn't make sense, and really tried to ask ourselves, what does this story need to feel complete and honest?
I think I'll move on to questions. We have quite a few coming in here. The very first one we have is from Aaron. What are some aspirations for your next 5 years, and how do you feel that filming of Father Unknown has played a role in those aspirations? This is for you, David.
This is for me. I'm very interested in stories, in particular films, that have the potential to move people in a deep way and in a positive way. And so I'm working on another story. It's not a documentary, and it's not a personal family story. I think I'm done with those. But I think there's a lot of potential for meaningful stories to really benefit us in positive ways. And that doesn't mean that the story necessarily is butterflies and roses.
Yes.
Father Unknown has some, it has a shape that kind of goes like this, and this, the darkness, the depth of pain or difficulty is kind of relative to the heights that we can achieve on the other side. So that's what I want to do.
Wonderful. And I wish you the best for that.
Oh, thank you.
Moving on to our next question from Paula. Thank you for sharing intimate parts of your lives with us. David, how did it feel when you experienced your dad in trauma during the trip? It's actually a two-part question. The next part is for the dad. To the father, how does it feel to be helpful to your son? That is commendable.
Can you help me rephrase that a little bit, David? Or I don't quite understand.
Let me answer the first part real quickly,
yes.
And then I'll tell you what I think Paula's getting at. Paula, when my dad was having that experience, we call it the nightmare. That's just what we call it. It wasn't a nightmare. That's just our filmmaker kind of label for that part of the movie. I didn't really know what was happening, and I didn't know it was trauma. I didn't have the. It was such a surprise for me. But how it felt is I was scared and I was concerned, and I had definite doubts about if we should have made this trip in the first place. But as you see in the film, when the morning came and we took a walk and he got outside, and I think there was something about moving and being outside, and you see him connecting to nature, which is something that's very important to him. He's picking up bugs and noticing plants and the natural world. That seemed to sort of bring him back in a way.
Yeah. So I'll put the question for your father again. So Paula's trying to basically understand that. How did it feel for you, Urban, to be able to help your son? I mean, how does it feel to be helpful to your son, because it's helped him bridge the gap and understand you in a different light, and perhaps, you know, it has helped you guys reconnect in a different way. So how do you feel about it?
Well, you know, it's the most precious thing that we now have, that we can communicate and understand each other much better. Um, I I've never felt so close to my son as I do now. I I didn't really understand the concept of what is family. Um, you know, you almost have to paint a picture um, to understand me and to understand what's going on. Is so I I didn't have a mother and father, so I don't know what a mother father relationship is, what that feels like, family and love and so. Um, I had very little schooling. I didn't know how old I was. All of those things really, I mean, I really didn't know what is normal. So what have I really gained from all this? I mean, my son is just, I just feel like everything is opened up for me. You know, obviously, we even talked to each other about that, and we have forgiven each other that the shortcomings that I've had as a father to him, and for the fact that this the closeness that we now have is so beautiful, and we didn't have that before, and we have it now. It's so precious to me.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. I will move on to our next question. This is for you, David. While I was truly inspired, this question is from Jim Rose. While I was truly inspired by the subject matter of the film, I was amazed by the technical quality of the presentation. Did you use any special equipment or device, any imaginative techniques to give it such a professional appearance?
Oh, Jim, thank you. No, I didn't. I really appreciate hearing that. No, the Father Unknown was mostly recorded on an iPhone 3. That's a lot of iPhones ago.
How many years ago was this shot?
We took the trip in 2009, and we've worked on putting the film together ever since. We spent a lot of time in the editing room, and there's not that much technically that can be done to. We did spend some time trying to make the footage look as though it wasn't recorded on an iPhone, because that would be my normal tendency as a filmmaker, would be to try and make the quality be as good as possible. So that would mean not shaky, not bouncing around, all of those things. But what we found is that when you removed all that, it didn't feel real and in the moment. And so it was very counterintuitive to include the messiness, which kind of tells us that you're seeing something that's honest and real.
And I think all your cinematography skills came in handy right there.
I guess so. You know, there wasn't much thinking about it. It was very much done just responding to the moment of what was happening. So I not having a chance to really think about how to do something meant it was just be there in the moment and try and capture what was happening.
We have, I think in our conversation, this must have been addressed, but it has come again as a question from Kayla. For Urban, what inspired you to listen to your son and agree to break the silence and explore your past? Thank you, both of you, for your courage and vulnerability.
Well, just for the fact that, I mean, it's very obvious that my son was also very much wanting to, I mean, just for the fact that he wanted to go to Switzerland. I mean, that he showed the interest that he wanted to go to the orphanage. I mean, he was meeting me at least halfway. And I think every family wants to experience. So you feel for one another. You appreciate one another. There's no fun when you're not at peace with one another. That if there can be some kind of harmony. So I mean, I could just. I mean, as each day as this progressed, he was just as involved and excited. We didn't know was we didn't know what was going to happen either. We looked at each other and says, "Wow, how can it be any better?" You know. So I could feel him just rooting for me, and he was. I mean, uh, I think my son has even said that is when I'm searching for my father, I really think he loved his father.
Oh,
That's right. That's right.
thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. My personal takeaway from this conversation and the film is that we take those who have parents, we take our relationships so much for granted. You know, we tend to think, oh, because I have a father and a mother and they ought to be like this and they ought to be like that. We have these preconceived notions and expectations of how they ought to be and how our relationship should be with them. And then we completely sort of ignore the fact that they are not just father and mothers, you know, the individuals too, and they have their own stories and they have their own upbringing and conditioning, you know. So to view them as that and to so really thank you for taking that step and opening the window and saying, can I do something to bridge this gap? It's very easy to shut doors, you know.
It's so easy to shut doors. It takes much more courage to try and open a door. Yeah, I was thinking about what you just said right before we got on the call about how when we're younger, when we're children, we have such expectations about who we want our parents to be, and we don't necessarily realize that our parents are also human beings and they're people with a past and their own experiences. And so it's exactly what you said, that it's not as simple as maybe we once thought.
Yeah. Is there anything that you would like to share with the audience that comes to your mind? You, Urban, with David, you know, your parting note. We're kind of running out of time, though I would love to carry this conversation longer.
Sure. It's such a privilege for us to be able to share the story and to talk about it. And it's really the conversation about these difficult subjects that's been so healing for us. Obviously, the trip that we made, my dad and I made, resulted in an amazing outcome for us. But if we had still made that trip and just been together and just been able to talk about what it was like for him and what it was like for me, and we never ended up on the doorstep of family, it still would have been a meaningful, positive experience. And so I guess my encouragement, because we lived this, is trying to talk to people, trying to reach out to others, whether it's your family or others, in a heartfelt way, is always a meaningful pursuit. Always, 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 regardless of what the outcome is. That it's very important.
It doesn't matter what your past is. There is hope for the future, and there can be a positive change, and that's why we enjoy sharing this movie. That there is hope. that people can see that as bad as the situation, I was never at peace not knowing about my father. And uh, there, there's just, there can be hope.
Thank you so much. And oh, on that note, I think I have another question that I see here. It's from one last question. It's from Connie. She says, David, I noticed you're wearing a wedding band. Did you reconcile with your wife?
This is the most perceptive audience I think of ever. You are correct, Connie. No, I didn't. My wife and I did not reconcile, but I've been remarried for 3 years, and my wife is an adoptee and a therapist that works with adoptees. And I met her through screening Father Unknown, and she has taught us a lot about the experience of relinquished children and the perspective of relinquished children, and that's her life's work, is to work with families like that. So you are right, our 3-year anniversary was last week.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
All right, on that note of sharing your most beautiful, intimate time and bond, your journey, your vulnerabilities, and giving us a sense of hope, giving us a sense of being there for your family, for your parents, for your children. So much love and gratitude and all the compassion. Thank you so much for joining us, and wish you all the very best for all your future endeavors. May this become like a really big Hollywood blockbuster and everybody should get the message.
Thank you. It's a privilege.
I really genuinely wish this film to be viewed by everybody so that, it is going to help them at different levels to heal something. So thank you, really. Thank you very much.
Thank you.